How's it going, guys? So I got an idea here to talk about another filler arc in Dragon Ball Z. Seems like a lot of people enjoyed me talking about the Garlic Jr. saga, so why not talk about the Otherworld saga? So this is a saga, once again, where a lot of people are not really feeling this one. I think it's a bit more positively received than that of the Garlic Jr. saga, but I was always fascinated by this saga because it really took Dragon Ball Z beyond. You know, it was sort of like the same feeling of why I like Season 1 so much. When Goku is running along Snake Way, he falls into hell, we see King Kai's planet, we see that there is a whole nother world, you know, when you die, and like, you kind of think about the boundary lines of this place, like, well, how far does it span? How far does it go? What, you know, where else, like, what lays beyond the tail end of Snake Way? Well, we get to see sort of that. We get to see that there is other planets, there's other places to travel, it is almost boundaryless, and we get to see Goku in some really interesting fights and interesting scenarios, and we get to see more fascinating, weird characters, and once again, the filler has this Dragon Ball vibe to it. It feels sort of relaxing, comforting in a strange way. Like, we kind of roll back the stakes a little bit. Because let's be honest, I mean, we just had this huge, massive fight with Cell. The stakes couldn't be any higher. We almost lost the whole entire fucking planet. You know, Gohan fucked around too much. Goku ended up having to do the ultimate sacrifice. And this is a nice little lead-in. Because basically now King Kai is displaced. Goku has blown up his planet. He is homeless. He's a bum. He's a vagrant. Because remember, Goku did the instant transmission, brought Cell when he was in the middle of his self-destruct phase, and it ended up blowing up the planet. King Kai's planet, that is. So we see that King Kai is trying to build a house along Snake Way. Goku's too strong, and he of course breaks it, and they get to talking, and Goku says he'd like to go on an adventure. Let's hit the road. King Kai ends up ringing up the Grand Kai, and we find out that this guy is, you know, the ultimate Kai. And this is before they came up with the idea for the Supreme Kai, and we would see in Dragon Ball Super that there's Grand Zeno, and we see that the hierarchy just keeps getting more and more, and it really brings the question, like, well, who is the god of overall of Dragon Ball, of the Dragon Ball universe? And here we thought for a time that the Grand Kai, that this guy was the ultimate, that this guy was as close to God as you could possibly get. We wouldn't really see too much of the Grand Kai after this because he's mostly he's a filler character. So this brings about Goku and King Kai traveling on a plane that's docked at King Yema's check-in desk, and they end up flying off, and we see this big planet where the Grand Kai resides, and you know, he lives in this big, huge, massive mansion, and Goku sees all these warriors that have been training for eons, and it's quite funny that Goku's so formidable that it really shows the, you know, the big gaping distance of power levels when it comes to everybody versus a Saiyan, because this, you know, Goku is living like a normal existence. These guys are already dead, and they've been training for thousands of years, and Goku thinks they're just going to be like so much more powerful than him. And then we see that, well, that's not really the case. These guys, some of them are powerful, some of them are very close to his power level, while others not so much. And we're introduced to Pikkon, who's going to be Goku's rival, and more of like a friendly rival. He's not a bad guy. When seeing this guy, I always thought he was a Namekian of sorts, until I kind of really thought about it and saw that the structure of the face is totally different from that of a Namekian, but I can't get that vibe out of my mind. And when we see later on when the both of them fight, and he's using weighted clothing, it also didn't help that, you know, he's wearing a cape and he's wearing a turban just like Piccolo is, even though it's different and it's different colors and all that. And we also see that there's a Hercules type fellow by the name of Alabu, and he's definitely supposed to be like Hercules, because we even hear that King Kai says that he is basically what all the legends back on Earth are based on, and all the mythology. And we're introduced to the Grand Kai, and this guy is like a metalhead, a hippie. Also, can we talk about just how awesome the Grand Kai's theme music is that Bruce Falconer composed? I love that bluesy riff. It just adds so much, and it adds to my argument that the dub is so great by Funimation. I mean, it's just so like well put together. Like, this music just fits so well, and this is not the original score, obviously, but Falconer and his crew, they just had such a keen eye and a keen ear, to be more specific, to what worked in this series, and the music always fits what's on screen, and this is another perfect example of that. And we see that King Kai has counterparts. That he's actually the North Kai. There's a West, an East, and a South Kai as well, and they all have their own personalities and looks to them, and it's pretty entertaining the way they play off of each other. Of course, they all seem like they're kind of against North Kai, like he's the black sheep of the Kais. That's kind of what's implied here. Also, when I see the West Kai, I can't help but think of like him being as a wrestling manager, like Pikkon is the wrestler, you know, sort of like a Paul Heyman of sorts, you know, just a really cartoonish, you know, goofy, fat character, and then you have his tough as nails student. I just think it's a really funny juxtaposition between these two characters. Pikkon is asked to go down to hell because there's a massive disturbance. You've got Frieza, Cell, the Ginyu Force, and King Cold all wreaking havoc down there. And this is probably one of the most shocking moments, maybe, of the entire series. I mean, they just defeated Cell by the skin of their teeth, did the Z Fighters. Specifically, Gohan, and, you know, with help from Goku. But we got Pikkon and Goku. Goku decides he's going to come along with Pikkon. They go down to hell, and they're doing just that. They are wreaking havoc down there. They're beating up on Gaz and Nez and all the other caretakers. But Pikkon just takes out Cell with just a few shots. And they make quick work of everybody. And, you know, we understand the Ginyu Force and Frieza, but, you know, Cell was just the biggest threat just a few episodes ago, and they're able to subdue them, and they get locked away. And I always kind of wondered about this. It's like, okay, are those steel bars like made out of something other than, well, maybe they're not steel bars, because how are they just not breaking right out of there? This part is just a little bit weird. Like, shouldn't Pikkon have to struggle a little bit more with Cell? I mean, really? We see that Goku and him are pretty evenly matched later on during the tournament, during their fight. So, wouldn't it make sense for it to be a bit more of a scuffle than it is? I mean, it definitely puts Pikkon over as a strong fighter, but maybe this was a little bit misjudged at the time, is all I'm saying. Now, we would see Frieza and Cell on screen once again in Dragon Ball GT, but it is cool to have it here in Z, even if they are just treated like jobbers. Well, anyway, guys, I guess it is what it is. I hate that saying, but I guess it applies here. So when Goku and Pikkon get back, the Grand Kai decides that a tournament would be very befitting to settle the differences between all the Kais. In this tournament, it's a lot of fun. And also, I just love the carefree nature of the Grand Kai. He goes skipping through his mansion, and he says this way as he's leading them to where the tournament will take place. And he opens this door, and it's like one of the most beautiful things you'll ever see. There's just fucking space in here. There's stars, there's asteroids. It's like the most surreal, trippiest thing you will see. And they have a ring in here, and it almost looks like the World Tournament back on Earth. So that's really cool, and that's definitely what's implied. And it has basically the same rules. You know, a ring out will result in you being eliminated from the match. And there's so many interesting competitors here. We're introduced to Mariako, who looks a lot like Giran from Dragon Ball. Remember Giran that Goku faced off against in the first World Martial Arts Tournament? Does anyone remember that? Yeah, you know, I know a lot of people haven't seen Dragon Ball who are DBZ fans, but I definitely recommend it. Doesn't look exactly like him, but there definitely is similarities. He goes one-on-one, Mariako does, against a toad creature, and he's so much bigger than him, he's mocking him, but then the toad blows himself up. You know, he's getting bigger and bigger and larger. Honey, I blew up the toad. But Mariako still manages to pick him up and dump him out of the ring, and I thought that had a lot of charm to it, like super wacky. You know, he's trying to turn the tables on him, but Mariako just turns the tables right back at him. And we've got Goku going against Aqua, and this guy looks like he's useless at first. He's just like kind of a puny fish man, but he turns the ring into a body of water, and we get an underwater fight, and it's like really cool. You know, these kinds of quirky fighters, this is definitely very Dragon Ball-ish, and I like it so much. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I also got a real kick out of Tapcar, this really small, super fast guy. He goes one-on-one with Torby, and it looks like he is going to outclass Torby. Tapcar is just like the fucking Roadrunner. He's just has massive speed, and then he just gets out of the breath. He says he forfeits because he's just too tired to go on. And I love, you know, that classic anime trope where everyone just falls over because they just can't believe what they're hearing. And the whole entire stadium falls over, and I was just laughing just non-stop at this. I was like, that was really a funny, once again, a very Dragon Ball-ish kind of scene there. We've got Alibu competing here. We've got Caterpie, gotta catch them all, right, guys? And of course, PyCon is in on this, and there's a few other competitors. I really enjoy the fight with Alibu and PyCon, seeing two other really strong fighters go at it with one another. It's kind of short, but it's definitely cool to see what PyCon has to offer. And I really think that Goku versus PyCon is one of the most underrated fights in the entire series. I mean, this is just filler. You can't find this in the manga. And I just think it's awesome that these two are going at it, and it's just a really well animated fight. I love how they're like crashing through asteroids, and it looks like Goku's got the victory. He's got the win. But when PyCon lands outside the ring, but Grand Kai, he finds an excuse because he's underpowered. The guy really hasn't been training. If you're watching the dub, he says he's been a real couch potato. I don't know what he says in the original Japanese. Something similar. He's just can't keep up with these guys, but he makes like he can. Obviously, he doesn't want anyone to know that he's underpowered so much. And he says because Goku and PyCon's feet hit the ceiling, which also kind of looks, it's all tiled and it looks like the floor. He says that this is a disqualification and both of them are out, and he'll give Goku a lesson in 1,000 years, and PyCon as well. So yeah, so that pretty much wraps things up, and then we go into the Great Saiyaman Saga from this point out. But what a nice little adventure this was, and what a cool fight, and you know, a lot of good comedy here. I really enjoyed everything that it had to offer, and I look at all these different characters. I think that the Grand Kai is a very charming character within himself. So yeah, this is just a really cool little diversion. It feels very laid back. There's not big stakes. You know, PyCon's not looking to blow up the Grand Kai's planet or anything like that, or, you know, really hurt anyone and give them any mortal wounds. So it is kind of cool, and that's why I think it has like a Dragon Ball vibe. There's a lot of comedy in here, and we did get to see the Grand Kai and PyCon again in Fusion Reborn, which is an excellent movie for those who haven't seen it. And even though Grand Kai is not really seen that much in the film, PyCon is, and we do get to see him fight a little bit against Janemba, although he's quickly dispatched, and he just is a way of distracting Janemba so Goku and Vegeta confuse. So there's that. And PyCon showed up briefly in the Majin Buu saga, and then after that, PyCon just disappeared. It's a shame that it seems like that's about it for him, because he didn't show up at all in Dragon Ball Super, none of the movies, and same goes for the Grand Kai. Looks like he's been replaced by all the other Supreme Kais and all the other deities that have appeared thereafter. So it's a real shame, but I will always remember and love these characters. Well, that just about does it for this little retrospective here, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. So let me know what you think down in the comments down below. Do you think that the Otherworld saga is underrated like I think that it is? Or do you think that it's just mindless filler and it's something that you could do without and you're happy that Kai cut it out completely? I'd be interested to know. But anyway, guys, please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bells to get all notifications when I post all my new videos. I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support. And thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.